Dreams don't owe you joy. Dreams don't promise peace.
I found out that you're encouraged by your nursery teacher to get into music.
Man, yeah.
How did that
Wild. So the
come
funny
to be?
thing is that like this is such an interesting question to be asked here specifically, because my nursery school is down the road. I was in St. Mark's. I refrain from using the word self-taught because I don't think we exist in vacuums. I think I have guided my education, but I have been taught by several people. Like a lot of people go into gigs expecting to dance.
Yeah.
More than to listen to what's, and that's always been like sort of the bane of my existence as an acoustic musician who's particularly wordy with my lyrics. So
I love how you can do a simple Kenyan song and give it the Ciano touch.
Thanks, man. I'm glad it reaches. I feel like there's nothing as bad as thinking like, oh wow, this is a phenomenal idea and you're the only person it's reaching. Like you're playing it to people and just like, I don't know about, it's an idea for sure. Phenomenal though, kidogo mushkil. Yeah.
Dreams don't owe you joy. Dreams don't promise peace. And dreams, they take their goddamn time. But please stand to your dreams.
Hey.
Yo.
Welcome guys. This is Hedgehog Unplugged podcast. Today we have Ciano Maimba himself. How are you?
I am not a morning person, so I think I'm still booting. It is
You're still
now
loading.
almost noon, and I
After
think
all the conversations we have had, we have talked about so many things.
I think the
Bado.
conversations have helped, but bado niko like at 80%. I think usually noon is where I'm like, okay, the day can begin. So, but I'm good. How are you doing?
Nice. Thank you for coming. I wanted to talk about your music and where your journey started. And doing my research, I found out that you're encouraged by your nursery teacher to get into music.
Man, yeah.
How did that
Wild. So the
come to
funny
be?
thing is that like this is such an interesting question to be asked here specifically, because my nursery school is down the road. I was in St. Mark's, and it was a Christian school, so there was a lot of like hymn singing before. I don't know whether it was before classes or it was like towards the end. I don't remember at what point in the day it happened, but we would sing pretty often. And I think at some point they noticed me and a classmate then of mine called Seraphine. Seraphine is one of the Moipe sisters, not one of the triplets, but their younger sister. Yeah. So Seraphine and I would sort of like be singled out. Then the memory is very hazy. I don't know whether it was like singled out to lead or singled out now to like to sing the parts more distinctly. You know, like the way when you're teaching like an audience.
Nursery.
This is nursery, yes.
Interesting.
Yeah, but then I don't. It didn't really follow through from there, because like after that I went to Westlands Primary, which is also just down the road for primary school, and they didn't really have a music curriculum at the time. And then also like I feel like while my parents knew it was a thing I was interested in, it's just one of those things where they didn't really know what to do with it. And then it's not like I was super actively asking, oh, take me to classes. I was just like, yeah, I like singing. It's
So you're playing and you're singing in self-taught?
I refrain from using the word self-taught because I don't think we exist in vacuums. I think I have guided my education, but I have been taught by several people. Whether like that's taught by listening and then trying out, or by, hearing songs that I'd like on the radio and trying to figure out the fingering patterns or like the chord structures, or playing with people and trying to understand how they think through their melodies. So I've been taught by everyone I've had the pleasure of working with, or everyone I've been curious enough to listen to attentively, which is a great many musicians.
So what came first, playing or singing?
Singing definitely, yeah, because singing is the nursery thing. And then in primary school, I didn't really sing much outside of like singing along to the radio.
Okay.
And then
what are you listening to at that time?
At that time, it was primarily R&B. So I grew up. So my father's music collection is like really vast and robust. So I grew up listening to everything from like Al Clue, who is like a fingerstyle, jazz, smooth jazz, to OTPK jazz, like and Madilu System, to Bob Marley's albums with the Wailers. So he had everything from like classic rock to rumba. So
the thing about podcasts, you can digress. I remember the first time we met, that time we didn't have vlogs. We just had Shaggy
hair.
And then I told you you remind me of
Lokua Kanza. I remember that conversation.
I told you I'm a musician as well, and you told me I would love to hear what you make, because if you're listening to Lokua Kanza, so now I'm remembering that with now the musicians you're mentioning. Now I can tell I kind of understand your music.
And then I think on top of that, there's also just like a lot of the stuff my mom was listening to that was like more on like the gospel-y side and like the Christmas. She had this Jim Reeves CD that she'd play every Christmas that just annoyed the hell out of me and my siblings. Ilifika point tukaificha kwa sababu tulichoka kuisikiza. Ilikuwa inafika hata December ijaanza, like the beginning of December till the end was just like every Sunday morning of that bloody CD. So it was a mixed bag for sure, but I feel like the stuff that I was listening to of my own volition was now akina Rihanna and Neo and Joe. Exactly. That's now akina Kiss FM, akina The Beat. A lot of Kenyan music also at that time. Akina when Kapuka was Kapukaing, when Genge was Gengeing. Really deeply influenced by like how raw, honest, and like context specific that era of Kenyan music was. And even just like now the Afrofusion that was bought shortly after that era, akina Dana Seda's beginnings, Sauti Souls, Mwanzo.
When do you pick up the guitar, and how does that look like? Why the guitar?
So I didn't even like, leave alone even guitar, even singing. I didn't sing much outside of like singing for my own enjoyment. I seriously started singing like actively, the one for like I'm trying to figure out what I like sounding like, what I like singing, what I like writing eventually was in high school. So I was in Upper Hill for the entire 4 years and like deeply depressed for the entire duration of it. And for me, music was the thing that was like holding me together. I was in an a cappella group, which was like a tradition in Voice in the Light.
Voices in the Light,
so I was in Voice in the Light for the 3 years, because the first year was just like me figuring out the school and like discovering about them, and then now wanting to join them.
Did you do music? Because I know
Upper Hill didn't have music. In fact,
to date.
I don't know what it's like to date, but at that time it was the student culture that was holding the music together, and now Fila, who would come and work with the choirs. Fila Redforth. Who would come work with the choirs, work with like, sometimes occasionally the a cappella groups also like would have questions to ask him about stuff, but very rarely. It was primarily just choir stuff. So even at the instruments, I picked up the guitar because I think I always gravitated towards harmony first, and than even melody or lyrics. So I wrote literature at first. Like I wrote poetry, prose, short stories, and then now I also enjoyed singing, but they were separate things for a very long time. And then now when I started thinking of like, I think it was someone who actually just suggested, I don't even remember who, he was just like, you write very meaningful poetry that's vulnerable and very you, and you also sing. Have you considered writing songs? And I was like, that's not a bad idea actually. Like I don't know why it never occurred to me for that entire duration.
And this is in high school?
This is still in high school. This is now, I think, Form 2 there. Because Form 1, Form 2, I was primarily writing poetry. as a way to just process my struggles.
So what is happening? Why are you depressed at that time?
I mean, look around. I feel like there's more reason to be depressed than there is to not be depressed. Yeah. So
and
then
this
on
is
top
in
of
high
that,
school. I feel like
school.
you're young.
Yeah. I think I'm always very cautious about that statement because it's like, you know, the way now you'd say ati sa unaambia mtu wa high school uko na stress gani, like bado hujakuja huku nje, but when you are in high school the stress you are having was valid. You can't foresee anything further. So as far as you're concerned, it is as deep reaching as any stressful thing any other person is going through.
So you get music is
so music helped process all of the things that were going on in my mind. I think there was just like a lot of individuation things, a lot of like, I think the first time I experienced a sort of like systemic disappointment was like I deserved to go to a school that was my first choice that I didn't get into because of backdoor situations. Like I had the marks and everything, which is not to say that like I'd have had a better experience anyway, because like boarding public school is rough regardless. Like you need a specific kind of metal to survive it. But then that was just adding on to all the reasons why I was not enjoying being in Upper Hill, on top of the culture shock. So music helped hold me together. And so the first songs I wrote were very influenced by now the more a cappella experience. And at this time I was also in like a worship band at ICC at the time. So there was an underlying like uzoefu wa kuimba in harmony. So whenever I'd write, I'd sort of hear harmony, whether it was like instrumental harmony or vocal harmony. And because I didn't have a way of always having voices when you want to write, which would be convenient as heck, I think guitar just made sense because it's a portable instrument. It was also the instrument that was available because my older sister was learning guitar at some point, and so there was a guitar in the house that was, you know, barely being used by anyone. So I had a guitar at home. There were a bunch of peeps in school who had guitars. It was just a readily available instrument, readily available. So in the event that I knew if I start playing shows or if I start like, you know, writing, it's easy to move around with it. So hence guitar. But ideally, the instrument I'd have liked to be my first instrument was the cello. So it's because initially they had wanted to put the cello here for you guys.
You'll see it.
You'll probably see it at some point. So it was interesting that you had selected the cello, and I was thinking, I've just thought about it now. I was like, wow, nice. That'd have been a full circle move. I still want to learn how to play the cello, but ideally that would have been the instrument I'd have picked first. Like if I had, you know, I guess the freedom and access to it as readily.
Okay. So now you've gone through high school, you're in ICC as well, in the worship band, and you're writing. Have you gotten fully into writing?
So I got fully into writing towards the end of like Form 4. So when everyone was like busy stressing about like, oh my god, I'm going to fail KCSE, me I was just like, I'm so happy to be done. I can't wait to actually do music full time, because I knew I wanted to be a musician at like 16. That's like Form 2. So by Form 4 we'd already done like a couple of random church gigs as an a cappella group with the Voice in the Light peeps. I was getting a sense of like just like performing things. It was not original stuff because like we'd basically just do renditions of songs.
Are there guys in that group that are still
right man now? There's Fred Makofu of, I don't know whether you know Rata Project.
I know Rata Project.
So Fred, and he's also a part of a collective of artists really who are doing their own sort of individual things with Akina Clark King and Zawadi. He's still putting out a bunch of very interesting work. There was a guy called Leslie who I know is doing music in some capacity, but I don't know. I've never heard from but Leslie was always mysterious. Like he will find you. You will not find Leslie.
Interesting.
There was Ernest who sang bass. I don't believe Ernest is still doing much music. But like, you know, from time to time we talk with Fred more frequently than anyone else. And then there was Vinny. So initially the group that I found before us was Vinny, Makofu.
Who's Vinny?
I'll explain just now. You know him. It was Vinny, Makofu, Kagiri, who is now the Dapper brother.
Oh yes, I know him.
Kagiri was tenor 1. Solid tenor 1. So when I was joining, I was filling in the shoes of Kagiri and Vinny. And Vinny is Vincent of television with
Ngugi.
Yes.
Yeah.
Man, Vinny's range was phenomenal. I think it still is, because like Vinny, when I met him at the time, he was singing like everything from bass 2 till essentially soprano.
Yeah.
And not just like touching on the register, he was solid throughout. So like there were big shoes to fill when I was joining, and it was.
But you also have a
I don't think I have a very wide. I think I have
not compared to Vinny.
Fair enough. Yeah. Maybe like I guess a decent range is how I'd phrase it, because I feel like I've encountered people with wide ranges. I have a decent range, I think. But then I was also just singing tenor one. I feel like Vinny's role was shifting between a bunch of the tenor voices
in different songs.
So Vinny was there, and I mean like, which is why I'm saying like a lot of the culture was student led, because even Ska of Cardinali was in he was a Form 4, I think, when I was in maybe Form 2 or Form 1, and even then they used to have ciphers every Friday.
Nice.
At one of their classes, like every Friday after preps, and then Saturday evenings, I think. It was called Freestyle Friday. And even then, because it was Sky and another guy, I forget the other guy's name. Like the original Wakadinali was Sky and some, I've forgotten his name, kabisa. He was called Ken something. But and so
it's not Orwa.
I don't know, it's not Orwa. And it was very like, it's the students coming together. There was no faculty member like sponsoring it, making sure we had instruments or even space. At a radio walikuwa wanatumia for the whatever was just like borrowed from the entertainment team. It was literally just students,
just the culture
jibambaing. It was all even Voice in the Lights whole like thing was people enjoyed our arrangements, and it was the students who enjoyed the arrangements. It wasn't at the faculty really cared about at us and making sure we have someone to even guide us. So even like when I'd leave, which is why I was saying when I was joining, I was feeling the shoes of Kagiri and Vincent. It was like them, they were in Form 4 and they were both tenor ones. So their job is to look for another tenor one to come in and sing their parts when they are gone. So there was no faculty member doing any of this, like teaching songs, nothing. It was all students.
And also Fila was just coming to...
Fila was working with the choir primarily. He wasn't even doing Voice in the Light things. Voice in the Light was all just students.
That's so cool.
That's
so cool.
It's really cool.
Really
cool, honestly,
That's very nice. And I feel like Upper Hill has produced... incredible musicians.
And I honestly I feel like it's one of the most magical coincidences, because it has nothing to do with the institution. Like it's literally just the people you encounter.
That's what I'm finding out right now.
Very intriguing.
The fact that even you didn't have music
at all
as a subject,
no even instruments
crazy.
At all. So I've primarily just guided my own music education. Because even then I was just learning from the other guitarists who were there and like what they were playing,
what they're doing. Interesting. We can talk about we can get into your guitar playing and your fingerstyle and how that has, you've said you will not say self-taught.
I would absolutely not use that word.
You will say, what would you use?
I have guided my education.
Okay.
So like I've essentially been the one who chooses, okay, who am I listening to and what am I interested in, what they're doing, and how are they then doing what they're doing. So it's led by my own curiosity around the people that I listen to and what I find intriguing about their choices. So for me, guitar was primarily a songwriting tool. I did not intend at any one point to become a guitarist. Like that happened entirely by mistake, purely fueled by curiosity. So initially it was just like, I'm trying to write songs. I need like a bed of harmony and I have no other way, and this is the most accessible way. But the more I played, and the more, because a lot of my writing was also just like, I'm trying to make it sound as close to the thing in my head as possible. And when you don't know how to do the thing in your head, you sort of like pick up techniques from other people and from your own trial and error until you arrive at like, oh, that's the thing that I wasn't hearing. So it was a mixture of like kubahatisha, and then now just like going for concerts and saying, oh, that's how they do the thing. And then now, of course, discovering YouTube, which was like now when I finally had a phone that can, internet. And then I discovered Akina Sung Hajung, Andy Maki, Antoine Dufoy, now the proper like late 20, or rather the 2010s fingerstyle guitar. Although Akina Andy Maki had been doing it much earlier, but I feel like here they really caught on in the 2010s. So that now greatly influenced my playing. And then much later, listening to bassists like Richard Bona influenced it even further, because like already the stuff that I picked from voicings and like I guess a bit of tuning things, although I very rarely play in alternate tunings.
Yeah.
And
actually,
then
that's something I wanted to ask you about. That do you play in alternate
sometimes
tunings?
Sometimes I think
and
it's
how that
usually
look like?
not much different from how I actually, no, that's a lie, because I'm more likely to play more melody lines, because a lot of those tunings are like it's a chord already, like without any fingering you're playing a chord, so it's much easier to play full chords and like more spread out cluster chords, and so it leaves room for me to play the voicings that I enjoy but more melody line things rather than like, so I think when I'm playing alternate tuning things, it's either like a purely instrumental piece or it's a piece that involves a lot of like riffing rather than just kushikilia chords, which I think I also maybe just generally underestimate how much I riff even in standard tuning. But I feel like when I'm playing in alternate tunings, I have more freedom to do that because of just like the drone nature of, which is I guess a thing that I already do. Like even when I play in standard, I find that I like playing chords like where there's like a lot of doubled like E there and E there. Or even this.
You see,
yeah,
like what you're playing. This I consider myself a guitarist, but when I see people like you playing,
so I think it's just like and I think maybe that's the thing that intrigued me with alternate tunings, the drone effect of like having certain notes like stay ringing or getting emphasized. I've always liked the idea of a pedal tone where like there's an ongoing note that is shared by all of the chords that you're going to play, but it plays a different role in each chord depending on like how you place the chords in the arrangement. Yeah, so very rarely I play in alternate tunings, mostly out of laziness, because it requires you to look at the instrument differently each time you're playing a different tuning, because sometimes it feels like it's really changed how you play the instrument entirely. And then also just because I feel like it makes sense when you have multiple guitars, and I have a steel string and a nylon string. My other steel string is an acoustic, which I also, now it's the one that used to be my sister's, which I've not been playing as much, I guess because I prefer the action of my current steel string. So I think just there are so many logistics involved with like playing alternate tunings and standard tunings at the same time that it's just much easier to keep working on the standard tunings. I think I'm also still learning my fretboard, and it's easier to understand it in like one tuning before now you shift it in multiple tunings. Yeah.
That has been a masterclass on guitar.
No, it has just been a little informative session.
On guitar. Okay, so let's get back. You finish high school, you get to campus, and now you already know at 16 that you want to do music professionally.
Yeah.
And now you're finished high school. How does that transition look like? You get into the industry. I think you went to Saudi Academy. Okay.
So the funniest thing is that this played out so serendipitously. So I finished school, and on the day of my last paper, in fact, shortly before my last paper, during one of the choir rehearsals, Phila is like, I know you play guitar and I know you, like, have a couple of your own songs. There's a show happening at UON, Graduation Square. Would you like to play? I'm like, heck yeah. I've never played, like at this point I think I've only played one show that was a solo show where I played my own songs, like guitar and singing. And it was like student organized by a dear friend of mine called Hari, who was really like very monumental in like pushing art in APA during my period there. Yeah. So yes, so this was essentially my second gig, playing my songs and singing them. So I was like,
immediately after high school.
Let me even just explain how immediately it happened. At this point, I don't have a semi-acoustic. In fact, at this point, I didn't even have my guitar because I left it at home. Juu mimi nimekuja nimalize exam. Niende. In fact, hata box yangu nilipatiana. Yani nilikuwa naenda na bag and the clothes on my back. I gave out. I think I thoroughly hated high school so much. I just wanted to be done fully. And then also there are people who needed boxes. Just generally, it would have helped more than going home with it.
And not using it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So finish my final paper. So yeah, so the gig I accepted was happening on the day my final paper was happening.
Wow.
So hata sikuenda home, like nilimaliza paper.
This is November deck.
This is yeah, I think November hapo. Yeah. Nimemaliza paper. Yeah, towards the end of the November. I finished my paper. Call my father. He's come for my stuff. Nikampatia the few things he was going to go with. Told him, I'll see you at home. I have a show. He's just like, you have a show? I was like, yes, I'm going to play a show at UN Grad Square. Yeah, sikuenda home because I live in Embakasi and this was upper. So kwenda home meant that if the gig is starting at like 5, that didn't make sense. Juu ni utafika town. Because my father wasn't going home at that time. I think he was going back to the university. He lectures at UN main campus. Okay. So nilikuwa ati niende town, and then I wait for a month
to get home. Was in UN.
Yeah. But then see, to change from uniform, I'd have to go home first. And home is but so that's at least an hour. No, I didn't go with him. I left him with stuff. Me, I walked down from Apa to graduation square because it's literally a walking distance. Sasa mimi nimefika hapo, of course I don't know anyone, so nimengevia tu, sina guitar. I'm just waiting for them, like I found them setting up. Shortly after, guys for I don't know whether you know Q.
I know Q.
Yeah, akina Pauline, akina Rosa came in with their guitarist. At that time they were playing with Abishai Maxman. And another guitarist. Abishai was playing bass for them actually, not even guitar.
So it was a full band set. They had the entire
It wasn't a full band. It was like they had backline for I think maybe like 3-piece.
Okay.
So it was drums, bass. So I guess full band depending on what you mean by full band. Yeah. So Akina Abishai started coming in, and then Sam from I think Sam was also playing for Q at the time. Sam who used to play for Dira drums. I don't know if you remember Sam. He's a chef now. Sam Papa.
Maybe seeing him.
Yeah, ukimwona. I'm pretty sure you've encountered him. So me nimekaa tu hapo. Then they've come in. Of course I don't know any of them. So as we are sitting there, they're just like, hey, ujamani nani amekaa hapa na uniform like anakani kame. And then I feel like this is the first point in my life where I'm like a regular size for my age. I've always been like underweight, short, uniform. And those people who uniform never fit all the way till form 4. Akina mimi. So first of all, I look like I'm properly underage. They're wondering what I'm doing there. But like we sat to catch up a story for a bit, and then now Abishai is like, oh, as we've come to play a show. I was like, yeah, even me, I'm here to play this show. He's like, yeah. So he asked me, what kind of music do you do? It's like, I'm a singer-songwriter. I'm still just like trying to figure it out. In fact, I've literally just finished my paper. He's like, okay, here, play me something. So because alikuwa amekuja na guitar. So I play him something and he's just like, like, when ni nani, umetoka wapi, like how long have you been playing, a bunch of questions, because I think even then I had very strange choices, or rather very uncommon choices because my goal was always just like I'm trying to get to the sound in my head, of course influenced by all the stuff that I was listening, but I think he could hear that like I already have a sort of direction I want to go. So we have a whole conversation, and he's like, in fact, now that I know you have a show and like that you're here to play this show rather, and you've come in uniform, I'll give you he had a denim jacket. So he was like, you can, so funny that I'm wearing. So he was like, I can give you my denim jacket at least to kae. Like,
I hope it's oversized.
Of course it's oversized because I was a very tiny human being. So at this point, nilisha make peace that oversized clothes were my jam, whether or not I wanted them to be.
No, sure. It's interesting that that's the fashion right now.
Yeah, I think there's always cycles too. And then I've also never really been one who cared about fashion for the most part. Like I've always been, if anything, very detached from my body. I feel like it's only a recent thing to be as present and like even making decisions about what I'd like to wear now. So but I digress. So at this point, now Akina Q come and they find me there jamming with Abishai, and they're just like, hey, uni nani? So we start all singing together. Kiasi Heart come at this period. At the band. Heart and Q were very close. In fact, there were gigs where like they'd BV for each other. Akina Hart now are the ones, Hart and Q are the ones who told me, have you heard of Sauti Academy? Now that you've just literally just finished your high school and you're clearly
like you finished your last exam that day.
When I'm telling you
that's so cool.
it was basically immediately. Nimemaliza paper, nimekuja hapo. They tell me about Sauti Academy. Of course, I went home now. After I played the show, I went and told my folks about, so I've heard about this Sauti Academy place. And I know I want to do music anyway. So they were like, so if you found something you're interested in, go right ahead. And then my parents have always
which year is this?
This is 2013, 14. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think
end
I
of 2013.
End of 2013. So I guess 2014. So I joined Sauti Yo 2014. Until 2015 sasa.
Oh, it's so 1 year.
Yeah, at that point it was because it was 3 terms and each term was 3 months, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. 3 months or 2 months, yeah. So they told me about Sauti Academy, joined Sauti Academy the next year, and then now Sauti made it now much easier to figure out what's going on in the industry, because like the learning
and also
about
meet people in the industry,
especially meet people in the industry. I feel like Sauti really, more than anything else, brought me closer to the people who are doing the things that I'm interested in, or like in the same direction. Yeah, meeting Dempsey, for example, was phenomenal because like,
where is Dempsey? Interesting.
Who knows? Yeah, I don't know. I honestly don't know. Like, but Dempsey really gave me a lot of permission to write the things that I write currently. Because like, it's one thing to know where you're sort of headed, and then another to hear someone who like has taken the time to craft a similar thing, and like is actively doing it, and is actively doing it at an age that's like older than you. Really, man, like gave me, and then doing it here, like having grown up here, having been brought up in more or less the same circumstances, was very necessary to hear. And then much later now, of course, I heard of Akina Webi. At this point, I'd of course listened to like Noel and Akina Newman from the church scene, but I think I hadn't heard that kind of like composition and arrangement, especially acoustically done outside of the gospel scene necessarily, at least here. Like of course I'd heard of the John Mayers and now the Sungha Jungs I was listening to, but here I think it took a while to find people doing the thing that I was looking to hear. And part of it was now also like the inspiration for like I'm not hearing the sound that I'm looking for, so I might as well write songs that I want to hear.
So is Dempsey, how do you interact with Dempsey? Is he
so
teaching?
Dempsey was teaching songwriting. He was teaching so Sauti Academy was broken down into, the first term was vocal technique, I believe. The second term was songwriting. The third term was music business. So Dempsey was teaching songwriting at the time, and man, he really shaped a lot of like my confidence, because I feel like Dempsey's whole thing was just teaching us things that we were already like. I think his lessons focused on showing us that we know stuff already, and the difference is that like we're not doing the things we know deliberately because we haven't taken the time to like break them down. And I took that forward, like even when I was teaching voice and teaching songwriting, I say was because I've taken like a break to restructure. That has always been my goal, like to remind the student that like I'm not coming from a position of now me I know everything and you don't know. It's like I'm just showing you the things that you know already and trying to make you make more deliberate choices around the things you already know. So Dempsey, man. And then also like sound wise, like outside of his songwriting being similar to things I was already looking to hear, even the sound and the technique of his playing and singing were very like, this is what I needed to hear. So man, I will forever say how necessary it was for me to hear Dempsey.
Curious, who are your classmates?
Wow, my classmates. Wow, there was Philly Combo, who I did a lot of shows with.
Philly Combo,
man,
we're in school with him.
I figured as much. We did a lot of my earlier gigs, like once I started doing my own stuff. Post Sauti and during Sauti were done with Philly. A lot of them.
And also he has a range for
man
days.
And a phenomenal voice. And just brilliant songwriter. I really miss his performance.
I think he's a chef now.
He is a brilliant chef. He makes my favorite cakes currently.
Wow.
Like every time I think of I want to order a cake, I think of Philly first.
Nice.
Just man. And it's not even just cakes. He makes tarts. He makes just everything delicious, quite honestly. Yeah. What a guy.
Who else are your classmates?
There was Ken Albert Orwa.
Yeah.
Who is a brilliant bassist, actually multi-instrumentalist, brilliant musician overall.
Yeah.
There was Mimi Karagania. I don't think you know Mimi. She's now a photographer. I think she's based somewhere else, not
Mimi,
in Kenya.
Is there a time she had a song with, I think, Unit or someone?
I don't
That's
think
a
so.
different...
Yeah, maybe that's a different Mimi.
Yeah.
Or maybe ni Mimi ndo sijui Limao. But yeah, I don't think it's the same Mimi. There was Chiki. I mean not Chiki, Chukunzira.
I think I've
Who
heard
was
that name.
yeah. I don't know why I even thought of Chiki, that's wild. Who was also like a dear friend of mine to this day. There was also, who else was in my class? What I can remember. Kena. I don't know whether you know Kena. Very soulful voice. Also, I don't think she's singing much. Or rather, I haven't seen her singing. I don't know whether she's still singing. Who else was in my class? What? My memory is very unreliable.
It's okay.
But yeah,
it's okay.
off the top of my mind.
So you finished. You finished Sauti. You've talked about business, which I think we can talk about later. In summary, how, of course, you've talked about Dempsey and how he molded and helped you at that season. What do you pick, and what do you do after?
So even during Sauti, I think the thing that I was learning the most from Sauti was just like how things work here. Like, you know, who is organizing the gigs, you know, negotiating for pay, what roles you can play at a gig, whether it's like a curator or a guitarist or whatever.
Yeah.
And then also just learning the work of organizing a show, because like for each end of term, it was your job to organize the concert as students. Like the school would cover things like, you know, they're paying for the rehearsal space and the venue, but you're the one who does all the promo, coming up with the concept.
I like that.
Yeah. So it really helped just like understand what it means to organize a show. And then at this time, of course, I was doing shows. Like, so part of our assignment was like you try and do a show every week. Whether it's an open mic, whether it's a paid show, you just have to do a show every week. And so it's your job to reach out.
That's when we met.
Yeah, that's around the time we met. Yeah, because man, I was everywhere. Man. And then especially poetry gigs, because I felt like poetry shows were ideal for the kind of stuff that I write. Because I'm a very wide writer.
Actually, we met at Eve of Poetry. Remember that show?
Yeah.
What church was that?
St. Andrews.
St. Andrews.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Organized by
with
Elsa Fanjora, with Akina Kendi, who's still a dear friend of mine. Man. Yeah.
I saw her posting you on your birthday.
Yeah. Kendi is truly a wonderful human being. Yeah. So I did a lot of poetry gigs at around this time and open mic shows, because I felt like it was such a wonderful place to be listened to, because people are already coming to listen to poetry, and I feel like that requires a lot more attentiveness than a lot of music audiences. I feel like a lot of people go into gigs expecting to dance more than to listen to what's, and that's always been like sort of the bane of my existence as an acoustic musician who's particularly wordy with my lyrics. So poetry shows felt like home, and I think still do, in as much as I've not attended them as much as I used to back then for that reason. So yeah, I think Sauti, that was the primary takeaway, like figuring out what it means to be a gigging musician, and what the dynamics of live events are like, at least from a performer's perspective and like a bit of an organizer's perspective.
Would you recommend Sauti?
I would have recommended the Sauti of then, because it doesn't exist anymore. She closed it. I was talking to Natalie when, I think a couple of weeks ago, and we were doing bare sessions with Della, and she was telling me she closed it now, because like it took a bunch of shapes. I think at some point it just got to a point where it was like the next step that made sense for her was just to close it. But at that time
there's a gap there. Definitely. Actually, I've been thinking about it and how we can create something like that. Yeah, because this information is very important.
Yeah.
You see how it molded your it literally molded your
especially
career
when you
and
have
helped
no frame of reference for like me. I just know I want to do music.
Yeah.
I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
It was
I didn't go through Sauti Academy, but everyone, my peers.
Oh yeah, that's true. There are a lot of us who pass through Sauti in some shape or form. Even Akina Nani who are here, Juzi, Akina
What in the Wheel. Yeah, we talked about that. Even Jerai.
Yeah.
She told us. Yeah. She's actually the episode
just before this one. Okay. I haven't spoken to her in a while. Also, I think we also really connected during the Sauti period. Like shortly after Sauti, we'd bump into each other at a couple of gigs. Even did BVs for Mudhoni MDQ for one of the blankets.
Nice.
Small world. Very
interesting.
Tiny world.
Okay, I wanted to talk about this experience of BVs and doing that, but let's talk about your project. Let's talk about Serve Chill. What was the creation process? I know you worked with M Cubed on that. How was that?
So that was it was equal parts random and intentional. Random in the sense that like M Cubed and I had known of each other at this point. Like we'd bump into each other at shows. Encountered
Did you
each
do
other
this
a
at the
couple of
Elephant?
times. Yeah. Well, he was still at the
When
Elephant.
it was here. Yeah.
So at some point he was just like, hey, I have this track. Now he sent me the track for Andy, which was just like a very short loop. He was like, hey, I have this track. I don't know what to do with it, but I think you'd know what direction to take this. So he sends me the track, and like in a few minutes I'm like, yeah, I have the chords. I have, I don't know what I'm going to write about, but I have the structure. Like I've listened to the loop and I know where I want to take the progression. I was like, alright, if you're down, you can come to the studio. Yeah. We work on it. I was like, sure. So I go, we do the song, we thoroughly enjoy the session because of that's like how our ideas bounced off of each other.
Yeah.
And we're like, cool, we put it out. People enjoy it, we enjoy it. And then shortly after, he's just like, I also had this one that sounds like similar. Now he sends me the loop for, I think, Dreamscapes. And even Dreamscapes, I was just like, inside. Like, I have the chords, I know where I'm going to go with this one. So at this point, I'm just like, we just make it an EP at this point. Because it's like 2 songs and we have very similar ideas. And then at this point, I had already started working on Peace Like a River. Because this is what, 2017, 2018. I went on a road trip with a bunch of artists. And actually, Peace Like a River, I feel like is co-written by me and Avis. Avis, the painter, visual artist. I don't know whether you know Avis.
Maybe.
Yeah, you've definitely seen her work. Phenomenal painter. Just like wonderful human being all round. Yeah. But phenomenal painter. So the plan, or rather the idea behind Peace Like a River was like, she was live painting as I was composing by Lake Oloiden. We had taken a trip and we were camping by Lake Oloiden. So I truly feel like her painting and just her company was a part of that songwriting process in a very central way. Actually, just that whole experience was very central to my writing Peace Like a River. So I write Peace Like a River, a demo essentially. I send Mbogwa the demo. I'm just like, now this is what I'm working on, and like I feel like there's a lot of atmosphere it doesn't have yet, and I'm wondering whether you can help. And like the first thing he does is he adds water sounds. And like I'm just like, I don't know why I never thought of that, being that I wrote it beside a body of water and the song is literally called Peace Like a River, but like just made sense. And then I talked to a friend of mine called Kaleli, who plays, brilliant guitarist, brilliant arranger. I think you know him from St. Andrews, maybe.
Kaleli.
Yeah, Kaleli Kiluva. Brilliant musician, just phenomenal musician. So I reached out to him. I'm like, I'm trying to add layers to this song and I don't know what layers that I want to add. I don't know whether it's guitars or it's strings. It's like, I got you. He adds very wonderfully sounding like dramatic strings. So it was like co-composed with me, Kaleli on strings, and then Mbogwa did production eventually, because like after I sent him the demo, it's like, come to the studio, we do it now properly, because I had just recorded it on my phone and posted it on SoundCloud. So I went to studio, re-recorded, and then I was like, I think I also need to add like a pianist. So I reached out to Noel Grass, who was already like working with at the time. Had I already started working with Noel? Yeah, I think I had already started working with Noel Grass at the time.
Okay. Finish the night. I've just remembered we have worked together.
Yeah.
for Engage.
Man.
With Noel Grass. Okay, finish first.
Reach out to Noel Grass, who also just understood exactly what
assignment.
Man, like, there are things he did in his delivery that I would have never thought about, but that only made sense, like, perfectly, which forever, like, even to this day, when I'm thinking of, like, I want to do a performance and, like, you know, or I'm trying to arrange something and I need a pianist, he's the first person that comes to mind. And then if he's not available, now I reach out to other peeps. So that was how, I guess, the project sort of materialized, because it was like one thing led to another, and it was like a domino effect. Then we arrived at, like, okay, we'll do a mixture of songs that, like, you've either come up with or, like, had an idea and then I've built on, and then songs that I've already written, like Akina Dunia's, Akina Singing the Blues. I had already, those ones I had written quite a while before.
So how many songs did this EP have?
It had 6, because it had Peace Like a River, Dreamscapes, Dunia, Uhai.
Well, you're saying hard, like it's in the past.
Oh, it has. Because you've asked it in the past tense, so I was just going.
I have corrected myself.
Yeah, I think it has 6 songs. Uhai? Wait. Dunia, Uhai, Peace Like a River, Dreamscapes, Singing the Blues. Why am I forgetting the 6th one? There's a 6th one. I'm pretty sure there's a 6th
Listen to it. Listen to the entire EP.
Yeah, so one thing led to another. And then I sort of made my selections, he made his selections, and then we tried to gel it together, like, thematically. I wrote, I still have big plans for that EP that I haven't, like, truly fleshed out, whether it's, like, merchandising or just, like, the stories behind the songs. I was planning to also do a show. So the unfortunate thing is, like, shortly after we put out this EP, pandemic. So even the shows that I had, like, planned to do, well, just before pandemic, I think my life was just, like, several things were happening that weren't going very well. And then now, shortly after that, when I was like, okay, now things are slowly settling down, is when the pandemic happened. The EP the plans for live performances of the EP just sort of, like, dwindled. But it's still a thing I can do. Like, you know, it's not
cast in stone. Like,
it's not cast in stone. It's also not at rotting. Like, the music is there. It's available, listenable. It's songs I still perform and rearrange. So there are still a lot of ideas that I have around how to push that project and, like, sort of, like, give it the time I think it deserves that I haven't yet done. Yeah.
Shameless plug. We should work together and curate it.
Yeah, possible.
Yeah.
Because I'm thinking very thanks for offering. Genuinely.
We should do it this year, actually. It's still
Sounds
early.
like a plan. Yeah. We will hold him to this. He has said this. It is
on record.
24th March 2025.
Yeah. We should do something.
Because I had, like, a bunch of plans to do it in multiple ways, because, like, I had an idea to do it an a cappella version, just, like, to feature my a cappella influences, and then, like, a version that's just, like, 3-piece or 4-piece band played acoustically, where it's like we're playing acoustic drums, acoustic bass, me on acoustic guitar, and then maybe an upright for the songs that have keys parts, and then a third one that's just, like, me and a string quartet. So, like, I had plans about, like, all the ways we could perform these songs and, like, all the shapes it could take, because of how I think generally the way that I write and compose gives room for so much interpretation and, like,
I like that
the
about
songs.
Acoustic and how it can take different. I liked. I was telling you about when you mentioned Noel Grass. This should be 2018. When we did Engage. And I was featured. And you were part of Engage band.
Was I doing background vocals?
Guitars.
I was playing guitar.
Oh
yeah, the one for you and Sero.
Yes.
I completely forgot about that Engage.
So it was very interesting, because most of the gigs I was doing, I was the one playing acoustic. So now having to have someone else. So it was beautiful. What was your actually experience like? Do you feel like, because I feel like there's a very fine line between
someone else playing the instrument that you play, interpreting the music that you play differently, and listening to what you want and then adding onto it meaningfully.
So what is the question?
So the question is, do you feel like I understood what you were going for, or do you feel like I was just doing Ciano things on your songs?
No. You understood. You understood. And also I was open to
each taking whatever shape.
Yes.
Okay.
That's what I like about playing
with other people.
About playing live. Playing live, the music can change with whoever is playing. Because I loved Noel touch.
Yeah.
Also your touch.
Man, Noel's touch is fino.
Yeah.
Thanks, man.
So the music, because the music sounded different and it sounded very, and it's on YouTube. You can check out.
Check
out the music.
It is on YouTube. I need to find that video and actually hear what I did for your song and for. I think I watched the Zero one. I think yours is the one that I didn't watch. For whatever reason. Maybe nilikuwa nashuku what I did.
You did a good job. You did a good job. And also you played we did a cover. You remember
me, you, what's her name?
Zero also.
Zero, Shiro, Mutero, right? Shiro wasn't a part of that one? I think I did another one with Akira Shiro. And that's the problem. Like, I think they are blood in my head. So I don't know which ones.
Because there are several.
We did. Yeah, because there are a couple. There's one I was just doing like extra voices for a couple of songs. There was somewhere I was actually like featured as an artist. Like individually, and then now there was that one that I was featuring as a guitarist. I don't think I ever did another one which is funny because like that's the only one I did as a guitarist, but I forgot it. Well, my memory is so unreliable.
Let's talk about this. Let's talk about what you've gotten into doing right now, arranging for people. We talked about that briefly last time we met. What are you doing now? How does that look like?
I think I've been trying to do more things that like have already been in my wheelhouse. Like I feel like as a singer-songwriter and a guitarist, I've already been doing a lot of arranging, a lot of like composing
for your own music.
For my own music, a lot of like even arranging vocal parts, arranging, like phrasing for the lead vocal, that sort of thing has already been things that you do as a songwriter. And then it's also things that I've received a lot of like great feedback about, like, it's not just like, oh, you have great songs. It's like I enjoy your arrangements. I enjoy the choices that you make guitar wise or like vocally. And so I just like over time I was just like, why haven't I considered arranging for other people? Like if it's a thing people enjoy, why haven't I thought of it as another thing that I do outside of just like doing my own music, number one, or just playing for other people and playing their interpretations. So I think that's where it came from just like it being I'm interested in arranging music for other people and just like even arranging the covers. Like the few covers that I do in my sets are usually very like, how would I play this song if I'm the one who wrote it?
Yeah, because you do. I love how you can do a simple Kenyan song and give it the Ciano touch.
Thanks, man. I'm glad it reaches. I feel like there's nothing as bad as thinking like, oh wow, this is a phenomenal idea and you're the only person it's reaching. Like you're playing it to people and just like, I don't know about, it's an idea for sure. Phenomenal though, kidogo mushkil. So yeah, it just started by telling people like, oh yeah, I'm interested in arranging and just like being around people who also see you, because I feel like, which is a thing I think Lisa has said about June Gashui. June works with people who she believes in genuinely. Like I think
saying
outside
Lisa said here.
Lisa. Even on your podcast. Of like the people June works with are people who she's seen from their own shows or their own whether it's like a social media presence, and she's seen a thing that they're doing that can add to her shows. So when she's calling you knowing specifically what you're bringing to the table and being open to seeing what you're interested in, rather than just like this is the gig and this is what I want you to do, which I think is one of the things that I enjoy the most. Because like even arranging for Della, she'd just seen me doing my own like arrangement things like for bare sessions that happened last month, towards the end of last month. And during one of the
was it last month or was it January?
It was last month. Yeah, it was last month. So during one of the rehearsals for one of her shows, the Motown show, I believe, he was just like, Ciano, if I give you a job to arrange, a couple of songs for, I was like, I'm ready now. Even before she finished the sentence, I was like, give me now. Which songs? Who are we arranging for? So she's like, great. Then I'll tell you the artist and the number of songs. And that's essentially just how it happened. She just took a chance, trusted me, and fortunately I enjoyed the arrangement. And I think that's been the most wonderful and like fulfilling part, that like it's very affirming to know for yourself that this is a thing that I'm good at, and I'm good at this thing for these reasons. Like there are certain choices that I make that are informed by X and Y. And then to hear it translate, not only from the musicians that you're working with, but the musicians whose music you're arranging, which I think is the most important. That like you've written songs that you love and you care about deeply, that you're going to perform somewhere, and I've come and told you, okay, this is how we are going to do your songs. For you to love those arrangements, I think it means that like I've not only understood what you are saying with the songs, but I've added meaningfully. I've not just added because I can add, which I think is usually just like the thing that I try and avoid the most. Like I'm just layering because I can layer. Without adding any, there has to be a reason I'm placing a voice there. There has to be a reason I'm changing that melody line. There has to be a reason I'm selecting for it to be bass guitar and drums as opposed to like just guitars.
Nice. Okay. How was the process? Like take us to the process of how many songs did you work on? How did it look like?
So at this point,
are you arranging for the band as well also?
Yes. Okay. So she leaves it very open-ended. Like she doesn't even tell you.
This is June or Della?
This is June now, because June is the one who calls both the artist and the arrangers.
Nice.
So she calls you and then she leaves it open-ended. She's just like, we'll come up with an ensemble after you've arranged. So you're the determinant of what instruments will be there, what capacity those instruments will be playing, and what the general like direction of the music is going to sound like. So I was like, alright. So I took the songs. Fortunately, I had already loved Della's music, like, and me, I loved Della's like Pauko album from like back in. So immediately she told me the artist is Della. I knew. I hope you guys know you're going to perform Pauko. Like, if I'm concerned, all the songs I'll pick will be from Pauko. So of course I selected the songs that were like near and dear to me. And then now for me, usually the process is like I start by first, of course, understanding the song and listening to the song, which now here we get to skip that because I already knew this song. So it was more reminding myself, okay, this is what it sounds like. And also, I guess, listening to the songs with new ears. Because like the last time I had them, I was barely a guitarist.
You're enjoying the music.
Like, I mean, I was a musician, sure, but not in the same capacity that I am now. So now there are things that I'm hearing more distinctly than I used to hear then. So then now what I usually do next is I come up with like a draft progression of like me, what choices would I have made if I was Polycarp, because Polycarp is the one who played guitar for that project. I was like, what compositional choices?
You even changed the chord work?
I changed a lot of things. Like I kept the core melody more or less the same, but I changed harmonically the chord work where it was going. Like cool. I kept a lot of like the general structure more or less, but even the structure was neither here nor there for me. So what I do first is I'm like, what's the song saying? How would I have written this? And what chord choices would I have made harmonically to sell that feeling or the idea of the song?
Yeah.
And then now once I have that, I track guitar, and then I track voices on top. So I also arranged 4-part vocal harmony around her melodies and with slight variations on her main melodies. And what usually informs for me like vocal harmony is like, what are the voices doing? Like what roles are the additional voices doing? Whether it's like emphasizing a word or selling a feeling of a moment, or transitioning us between sections of the song and adding like either a pop of color or just like a breath of fresh air before we continue, or emphasizing a section of the song, like for something like War in My Heart, emphasizing the word war and little things here and there. It's like, what am I saying with the voices and why do they need to be 4, for example. And then I also arranged for a 4-part string ensemble. So that's viola, cello, violin,
Akina
1
Kate.
and 2. Yeah, Akina Kate, Akina. It was Dennis on viola, Rov on violin 2, Ralak on violin 1, and Mimo on cello.
Oh, you know her as
Yeah,
Mimo.
yeah. That's why I was just my brain was just doing Kate. Who the hell is Kate? Like that math really had to math for a bit. Yeah. So I arranged for them, and then I also arranged for the band. But for band, I had primarily just arranged drums, bass,
Who's
guitar.
that? Amani.
No, it was Richie Wanda on drums.
Yes.
Kimeto bass on bass. I always forget his first name. I'm just like, there are 2 Vimeto.
Vimeto.
Then Kimeto keys on keys. And but I didn't. So for keys, I was arranging during the rehearsals because I never really know where to place keys in an arrangement.
Why did I assume you play keys?
I don't know. I think because I arrange and compose things. I think it's a very.
Can you play keys?
Barely. I can use it to
Triads.
to do things.
Oh.
Leave alone even triads. Like I can even play like full cluster voicings, but I can't accompany myself. I can do it as like I'm recording, and I need to track this 4-bar section of chords, and then cheat for the next 4 bars. Or even then I'm doing like just left hand, just right hand, then stacking those.
Another thing,
audios.
can you read music?
Barely. Also, which was part of the challenge of like, so June has given me the songs. I've sent her my demos of the arrangement. So the demo, so in the demo, I as I've said, I track guitar first, track now voices, and then depending on what I've done with the voices and guitar work, the bass and drums emphasize the accent locations, and then now as I'm doing bass and drum accent things is where I realize, if there's a break here, I can add the strings onto that break, or I can even add like whether it's like vocal ad libs that now either the BVs will sing or the lead voice will sing. So everything is sort of like stacking on top of each other context wise. And then now I send the demos to June and Della and the band with all the parts. They listen to them, they rehearse. Now for strings, because the string musicians are classically trained and primarily play classical music, we needed someone to do the notation, the transcriptions, because I can't. So we had to reach out to someone, and like June made some calls. We ended up working with a lovely strange human being called Rema, who really helped. Like
strange.
It's just like she's a very odd human. I mean, I'm strange as well. I think it's part of the things that I enjoy about her personality. So Rema really helped like write the things down. And I mean, I can read, but not. I'm not an advanced reader. I can barely read. Like I can make sense of like, if this is a G clef, it means the G lands on this string, and therefore, so now I have to do the.
This is where music was supposed to be in Upper Hill.
So
that you start there.
It should have truly really helped. Also, I just think that there's music education of any kind. It doesn't even have to be like Western classical. I feel like it would just help for us to have language around our ideas generally. So I'm not even necessarily at a big on learning Western classical. It's just it helps because it's primarily the music we listen to, and the instruments we play are tuned to the system of like 12 tone equal temperament for 40 hertz as a type situation. But I digress. So now Rema would listen to the audios and then she'd be like, okay, I need you to send me these audios individually because I need to know what the cello is doing by itself, because altogether it's difficult to know, because also like I don't write, because again I'm not classically trained, or like I've not had any formal music education. I don't write in the expected ways, in the sense that like, this is usually the violin one's role, and the violin one will only play this role for the entire duration. And same thing with voices. Like for me, it's always just like, what colors do I want? What will add
which
to
is
this
beautiful. It's more.
Although I would like to study how now, like the structure behind now the classical periods and even like jazz harmony. Now from the other side of like, I've figured out the sound that I like and the choices that I go towards from trial and error and stuff, but I'd like now to hear from a more structured I guess perspective how they think about what goes where.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I also remember you worked on Mpakani.
Mpaka. Yeah, so Mpaka.
Yeah.
Close enough. More or less the same thing.
It's because I did a project called Mpakani. That's why Mpakani has come to mind.
Yeah. And so Mpaka was a musical that was the brainchild of Kweva, and specifically the brainchild of one Adams Simwa, who wrote the script.
A good friend of mine was in that production, Rexy Kamau. You know Rexy?
Yeah, I know Rexy.
Yeah.
Cute guy. So at this point again, which is back to the thing of just like talking about things you want to do. So I've wanted to compose for film, ads, just to do more themed music in general. And like I've told a couple of people here and there, and one of the people I've told is my younger sister, Victoria. Victoria happened to be the director of this. So she was just like, we are directing a new musical, and music director is in another country, so she's not even available even if we wanted her to be here.
Who was it?
Would you be... She's called Melanie. I forget her second name.
It's okay.
Yeah, she's called Melanie.
Of importance is you did the good.
Yeah, so she's like, our usual MD is gone. Would you be willing to fill in? At this point, I also had 0 gigs. Like, I think I'm still, to this day, I think I'm still recovering from pandemic times and how that changed everything. I feel like only now is when the shows are slowly coming back to where they were. So I was like, yeah, sure, I'm available. It's in line with things I've wanted to do. I've never composed for a musical, but willing to take up the challenge. Man, and what a challenge it was.
Interesting.
I feel like that's the first time that I was arranging for 4-part harmony. Usually, like even in my songs, I arrange 3 parts.
I was expecting bare sessions to be harder.
Bare session was after Mpaka. So I had already had practice with Mpaka. So bare sessions was easier because of the practice.
Okay. Makes sense.
Mpaka. Yeah, so so now I have to I was like, and then of course this was all me who decided, because like it was like, oh, you're the MD, so you essentially decide you're deciding even what the ensemble will look like generally. So at this point now we've done auditions, we're trying to figure out voices, because even by the point of auditions we don't know what the songs will sound like we have the script but I've not written the songs. So even as we're auditioning for voices, we're auditioning for general voices. Like I was just looking for voices that are malleable, people that can blend, that people that have good melody retention, good ears generally. So a lot of the audition was just like hearing you do a song, seeing what your range is like, and then like doing little exercises, like I play a melody and you try sing it back and pitch match. So little things here and there, rather than like, oh, this is the song you're going to be singing, are you in the register sort of thing. Yeah, so now from there is where it was like, okay, so these are the sections with the songs. So you're sent for the script, and even the script was still in development at this point. But you have a general sense of like what's happening, what the song is supposed to be doing. And I thoroughly enjoyed the compositional part because like that was just like puzzle solving, which I think is usually my favorite part of like what am I saying with the song, what is the role of the song in this production, and what tools can I use, whether harmonically, melodically, texture wise, can I use to sell these ideas and to sell the themes in the show. Yeah, so a lot of it was also very leaning into my own influences in the stuff that I already do, which again is the thing that I was saying about like all of these projects, that it's just like these are things I already do. Now I'm just like breaking apart from doing them for myself and doing them in more specific contexts for different productions. Yeah. So I ended up deciding I'm not going to use strings, because I think at this point I was just like, I don't know what the budget is, because they were still seeking funding. So I was like, it makes the most sense to do things that like I'm already used to, because I'm already used to arranging for voices, I'm already used to arranging for guitar and bass and drums, and then keys will add, atmosphere will double, melodies, or like, you know, instrumental harmony between guitar parts, or like just like to color specific lead voice moments that are necessary. but like the core of the songs was like the rhythm section. Although eventually I kept making this joke about like I feel like the songs I composed from Paka made everyone part of the rhythm section. It didn't matter what instrument you're playing because everything was like syncopated against each other, and I think that's always a way that I gravitate towards composing and arranging. So now what that looked like is I write the song based on the section that I'm writing, send it to Vicky. Vicky now does like a essentially continuity supervision, which is like, does it make sense for where it's at? Does it sound how we also had intended for it to sound? And if it doesn't, maybe explain why it doesn't. And like, what were you thinking when you were trying to? Because like sometimes you've come up with the idea and it's like, I want this to sound sad, and then me, I play my version of sadness and it's not your version of sadness, and we have to talk about what you meant by sad. So I think that was enjoyable but also challenging in that like you have to factor in people's subconscious expectations of like what a sad song sounds like, what a sad theme sounds like, and then factor in your choices for like sorrow isn't linear, for example. There's no one sadness that we've all experienced. Like we both understand sadness, but your sorrow is not my sorrow. And then depending on the context, the sorrow is also different degrees, different. So and then now
the chord work,
precisely
using minors,
using
a minor
and even using minors is neither here nor there, because like I could play it in a major, but the choices that I make precisely. I can make a sad song that's entirely in a major key based on my choices.
Interesting.
So I think it was about things like that, because initially the idea was like, so the story is based on two conflicting communities that are living literally next to each other, divided by like a border, and they are supposed to, or rather what the music was supposed to be doing was to color how different these cultures are. And one is supposed to be more rigid, rule set, like, they live a very rule guided life, like there's a right and there's a wrong and there's no gray area, it's black and white. And then the other side is like a lot more colorful, a lot more nuanced, a lot more expressive about the ways that they live, and the music was supposed to do that. And the initial idea was like for the more rigid people to have more rigid sounding, and their suggestion was like almost Western classical, and then these other guys to be more like contemporary dancey stuff and dancey, more African things. And me now, my response was like, it can all be colorful. It doesn't have to be like, and I mean, which is not to say that Western classical is not colorful, but it doesn't have to be on the nose like that. Like it can all be contemporary sounding, but the choices that I make like rhythmically or melodically or even delivery wise, because like what difference. I did for the rigid songs is I made it so that like even the melodies sung by the lead voice is harder. Like where you're doing the runs is here. There's no additional runs. Where you're doing the, right down to almost even like breathing. This is your section.
You had to have a disciplined band.
I had to have several conversations with the musicians.
This is Kinamwesh.
This is Lucas on keys. Very reliable musicians. Nick Kera on bass. Jazziel on drums. Who are also the people that I reach out to when I want to play like a band type situation, 4-piece, 3-piece. Those are my people because they're just brilliant musicians, good ears, and then also very reliable. Like whether it's reliable communication wise or reliable just like understanding the music, playing their role, and then adding meaningfully, not just like adding to add. So this we haven't even gotten to explaining it to the band. This is still like you're composing, you're doing back and forth with Vicky. So now once she agrees, what you do next is like, okay, so the song is saying what it needs to say and it's sounding how it needs to sound. Now you reach out to the main singers and ask them, are you comfortable in this key? And then if they're not, you redo. Fortunately now with Akina Ableton, you just pitch it up and send it back to them. It's like, oh, is this comfortable? And then now I arrange the other things after that. So now I start arranging additional voices.
Which reminds me, because you've talked about Ableton. When did you get into production?
I think shortly after Serve Chilled. I was like, this seems like a necessary skill, like more or less. Even now I can't really say that I'm a producer. I can track my stuff. I can't say like I can mix properly, and even tracking I'm still figuring out, like, you know, if I want to sound like this, if say for example I'm tracking guitar, how much can I pick up with a, you know, direct DI, or like plugging directly to a sound card, and how much can I pick up that I can only pick up mic'd, because of how percussively I play. There are things that are lost, especially given the fact that I play an acoustic instrument. There's a lot that's lost if you're just taking the signal from
as is
from the what's it called, pickup, unless you have now a more complicated pickup where it's like mics and a piezo strip underneath the whatever saddle, and even then there are still things like body percussion things that won't be picked up with those mics, so external mics might be necessary. So figuring out how I want my voice to sound, usually both delivery wise, mic control wise, and also just what kind of mics favor my tone, and then also just realizing, while these kind of mics would be more favorable, how much money do I have now? What do I have access to, and what can I do with the things that I already have currently? So it was more of like seems like a necessary thing to learn. Let's figure it out as we go. And then now, as I was figuring it out, I also realized like I haven't put out a project that's like a Ciano project, because all the things I've put out are either collaboratives with like Akina Men of Souls, where it's like a collective thing, or like with Mbogwa, M Cubed, or Jinku. It was always just like I'm with someone else, and like there's a lot of stuff I've written that I haven't put out that I'm consistently being asked about. Where can I find these songs that I also think need to be released, because I think it's necessary to immortalize the things you've created, even if they are no longer things. So I've been working on an album for now, like 5 years, primarily self-produced. So like I'm tracking, I'm arranging, of course, composing, all of that stuff. I think I'll only outsource the mixing and mastering, because I have no idea what to do with the mix.
You know, Hendrik Sam is a brilliant.
I'm very familiar. We've even worked on some unreleased things for other artists, though, not like our projects, and we were supposed to work on like some stuff with him, but he's a busy man, so
very busy.
As you watch this video, reach out.
Okay,
so be cool.
That's amazing.
So that's how I think I ended up learning production. It was just like feels like a necessary skill, pick it up along the way, and then now with the album I've been working on for the past couple of years, I feel like that's where I've really worked on production. Then now, of course, Akina Mpaka and because I needed to record demos to send out for these, because there was no other way people would know.
So it came in handy there.
It really did. I don't think I'd have been able to do those jobs without the skill.
Okay. I want us to do two things. I want to ask one question about music business. How is it? Because your sound is not mainstream. So how has it been in terms of the reception and also getting gigs and the music business side of it? How has that been?
I think mixed bag, really, because I think even if I was making something more commercial, like you're not guaranteed an audience, or rather you are guaranteed an audience, but you're not guaranteed a successful career, or like a successful career. So I think it's been a mixed bag of, you will forever find your people if you're creating things you genuinely believe in, because you're not the only one who believes in the things that you believe in. So just by virtue of making things that you genuinely are behind, like you can fully say you support the things that you've put out, you're always going to find people. And I think the challenge has just been like to figure out where those people are and how to efficiently and consistently reach them has been the thing to figure out. So I think I'm still figuring out where to find my audience. I've found peeps, and then I think also the pandemic didn't help, the whole not having shows for a good chunk of time, and then coming back and playing shows, but also playing like a mixed bag of shows. Like some you're featuring as a singer in like primarily a cover gig, or like now these arrangement gigs where only the people that really care about the arrangements will be like, oh yeah. But then again, I think it's back to the whole thing for like, I think if you're truly a Ciano fan, you enjoy the arrangements. And so I'm an arranger as well. So attending a show where I've arranged, you can probably pick up, oh yeah, that sounds like a thing he's... Yeah, so I think that's sort of like the weird middle place that I always find myself. That it's because it's very listening heavy music. It requires a lot more thoughtfulness, a lot more attentiveness, and therefore it's not a very... I don't think my music is very pick up and play. Like just like, you encounter it in passing and you're going to listen. Yeah, you sort of have to be intentional. I mean, like, I think it's intriguing to hear as like, oh, that's an interesting voice, that's an interesting progression, but I don't think it's a thing you're ready to sit with immediately if you are not prepared, because both the things that I write about and the choices that I make require very... Okay, we're doing the listening now, and we're doing the sitting with our thoughts and our feelings.
It can't be background.
Yeah, or it can be. I think because of the compositions and the arrangements. But either way, there has to be I've selected for it to be background. I've selected. I feel like it's for that reason. It's difficult to just like come across it as a random thing. Okay. Yeah.
The last thing I want us to do, I want us to go through quick fire, so that we can.
Yikes! Because now I don't know what to expect.
Yes.
Do I have to answer quickly, or you're the one who is doing the quick fire with the asking?
It has to be quick. It has to be quick. But we can break the rules here and there. What's the first song you ever performed live?
First song that I ever performed live, I think it was a hymn in my nursery school days. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. What's the weirdest place you've ever written a song?
Weirdest place I've ever written a song. I mean, weird is relative. That, and that's the problem fundamentally. But I think written a song.
Yeah.
Weirdest. I guess the toilet. Because it's like, and then it wasn't even like a full song. I think sometimes you're just there because I feel like toilet time, whether it's like bathroom usage or showering, is very contemplative. Like, I mean, you could go with your phone, sure, but it forces you to sit with yourself. And so when you have ideas swimming in your head, that's usually a very prime place where the ideas come into the forefront. So I'd say toilet. Yeah.
If you could collaborate with any artist, local or international, who would it be?
Oh wow! So one, I think I'm very specific about collaboration. It takes a lot more than just like, oh yeah, you're cool, let's make something together. I think it's more of like connecting. What kind of conversations are we having? How are we adding to each other's perspectives as well? Yeah. So I think a number of people. I think there are several people.
Give me three. Top three.
It's a difficult question to answer because it's like, who would I like to work with versus who do I think the collaboration would be meaningful with? And your question is what? Your question is who would I like to work with? I guess. So the answer then, I guess, is off the top of my mind. Fariji Napa, who is a brilliant singer-songwriter who's based in Nairobi now. Richard Bona. Jacob Collier. There's this guy who conducts Snacky Papi and Metropole Orchestra. I think a bunch of people, like for several different reasons. Yeah. But yeah, I think it would be cool. Local. Oh, you've also I said more local names. Fariji was the first one that came to mind. Who else was I thinking of? Manasseh also. I think Manasseh, rhythmically and harmonically, we have very similar tendencies. So I think that would be fun. I'm supposed to be writing a song with Kendi in Konge. That's nice. Just one of my favorite voices and favorite human beings. If you guys haven't listened to Kendi, listen.
You should
Kendi.
Listen to her. Yeah. What's your favorite venue to perform in Nairobi?
I don't know that I have a favorite venue to perform in Nairobi. I think for me it's more about like the curation than it is about the venue. Because if wherever you're playing is curated right down to like the staff knows, like whether if it's a restaurant or it's like, both the audience coming and your team and the location, if everything is working synergistically, that like everyone knows what to expect and everyone knows like that if it's an intimate show, we are all coming to listen, we're all going to give room to the performers, then I don't think it really matters where. So for me, it's always been more about the curation than it is about the venue. Yeah.
Okay. What's a hobby you enjoy outside of music?
Video games. I play a lot of video games.
That's the easiest.
That one, in fact,
answer you've given.
I feel like it's because video games have been such as like a central part in my life long before music was a central part in my life. Yeah.
Interesting. Favorite Kenyan dish?
I can eat chapati for every meal for the rest of my life and not get tired of it. Like breakfast, lunch. In fact, I think there's a chapo joint here that you showed me. The bus. I was thinking about it on my way here. Just like there's a place I can get chapatis. Yeah.
Interesting. I'm the one who showed you.
Yeah, you are.
I have showed many people.
In a kind of joint yako.
I should own it.
By the way, wanapatia. Yeah. Umewafanyia free advertisement.
Most memorable concert you've attended as a fan?
Most memorable concert I have attended when Richard Bona played Safaricom Jazz Fest. Man, because it was Richard Bona, Jonathan Butler.
Hey, yes, I was in that
and
concert.
And who else? That was a good gig, man.
I remember that
wow.
when I grew up listening to Jonathan Butler.
Yeah.
So I loved his music.
Yeah.
When we came in, we were standing at the back. By the time Jonathan Butler was getting on stage,
inside the speakers.
because that people I came with were telling me they saw me on the screen.
I love it. Hey man, that was a good show. Such a good show.
Okay. This is an interesting question. If your music had a signature drink, what would it be called?
Ooh, it would probably be something with berries and like a. As it first, definitely a cold drink, a cold non-alcoholic drink with berries, an amount of tartness, and maybe mint for just like extra airy freshness. So something fresh, citrusy.
What would it be called?
What would it be called? I don't know. I'm not very good with it. Or rather, I'm good with names and I've had more time. Revisit this question in maybe a week.
Beach, forest, city. Where do you feel most inspired?
I guess the easiest answer there is beach, although forest was a close runner-up because I think I'm very drawn to vast openness, whether that's like a desert or like just like a place where you can stand and for as far as you can see, you see nothing but the thing. Whether it's nothing but desert, nothing but ocean. I think it's a very good reminder that like you are a drop in a drop in a drop in a drop, because like that's you looking at the ocean, and then that's also our tiny planet looking at the universe, and then our galaxy looking at now other. So like you can keep expanding it, and I
zooming
think that's
out or zooming in.
Yeah, I think that's always been like a necessary reminder that like somehow you are meaningful regardless of how much you're a drop
where
in a
you
drop
are.
in a drop. Yeah.
Nice. I like that. What's one piece of advice you will give your younger self?
Keep listening to your intuition. You've always known what you need and what you need to do to get to where you need. Take up more space.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. And I feel like that's what you're doing now.
I think so. I think I'm doing a good job. Like I feel like young Ciano is just like, wow.
Good job.
Could have never imagined that you'd be doing the things that
if
you're doing.
If your life had a theme song, what would it be?
Ooh. Why would you ask me such a like? I don't even think I have an answer to this question. There are so many things, but I think off the top of my mind is so Jacob Collier's first album. I think the first song on the album is called In My Room. And then there's also a song called Hideaway from that album. Those two songs I feel like would be the theme songs for my life.
Nice one. Okay. That's all. You see how it wasn't.
Bold of you to say that. As you've seen, I've overthought like how many of those questions before I arrived at the answer. So close enough.
Actually, some of them you already answered, like morning person or night owl.
Oh, fantastic! Yeah, I'm absolutely not a morning person
at all.
Just
yeah. Okay, that has been our time. Thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for amazing conversations we've had. I feel like this people who are like musical, I don't have the right word, musical intellect.
Yeah, people with an aptitude for music.
Yeah, will enjoy this episode.
I hope so.
Yeah. Tell us in the
let
comments.
Us know in the
tell us in the comments.
Like, share, subscribe.
Yes. Thank you very much. That has been our time. We are at Hedgehog Creative for all your musical needs and even for classes. I've just remembered I've not asked you about teaching.
So I've not been teaching for a while, but I'm looking to get back into it this year. And I teach songwriting and voice. I don't teach guitar yet.
Why?
I think guitar is weird for me. I don't know how else to explain it. I can't, for whatever reason, come up with a curriculum for guitar. I think because I don't think of it as like I'm playing an instrument. I think to this day I still think of it as like I'm writing, I'm arranging, like as a tool more than like, oh yeah, I'm a guitarist, and so I have thoughts on the matter. So I think just because I haven't.
You see, in podcasts you can, when you're, I'm concluding the episode and asking questions. We don't have rules here. So thank you for watching. Thank you for staying till the end. See you on the next one, and subscribe. Remember to subscribe.